At this stage, then when the design has been produced. In fact, to develop land, it can range from something easy to something very complex, like that mixed-use development. Inside it, there are service apartments, details, and even some other elements like hotels, Grade A offices, and so on. The higher and bigger complexity and difficulty increases the development value. However, if mistakes are made, the consequences are quite severe. Some of these errors can be fatal and lead to losses for the entire project. Here's my contact, and finally, we can see this slide. I'll start from something simple. What is project management? So, we have a rough understanding of the whole project, each operator, each location, and we call each of them a project. Let's call it a project, right? So, project management is how we apply our knowledge and skills to execute a project effectively and efficiently. For example, if we're working on a strata, that's a high-risk element that we haven't really explored yet. But we need to form the joint management body, and when the strata title is issued, we'll also need a foundation and a management corporation. A simple way to put it is that project management, at its core, is about making sure each group and each person completes the tasks they need to do. In fact, environmental projects are projects too, but what we're discussing now is real estate and property development. In general, land value or price will always be increasing about 2% or 3% return or land value appreciation per year in normal situation. But some situation can become very negative, like having a chemical plant built right next to the land, causing the land's value not only not increase but also to decrease or become lower priced. Actually, in general, property prices tend to increase. However, only the neighboring or nearby properties developments can lead to a huge increase in prices. This increase is usually around 8% to 10% per year. The organic raw land's price increase will not be as much than doing property development on your own land. After buying the land, we need to prepare and submit a concept plan to obtain development order, and then submit the CCC, Certificate of Compliance and Completion, to the relevant authorities. Initially, you can use the empty land for various purposes like setting up installations or car washing. But if you turn it into a multi-story building, the area increases significantly. For example, if you go from a single-story to a 4-story building, the area could increase by 4 times. The value of a property increases when it becomes more complex, like a hotel or apartment building, where people can use it for different purposes such as residential, office, and more. So, when landowners buy land, they expect the prices to rise, but having too high expectations can hinder deals. The key is to develop the land to maximize its potential. If lack knowledge in this area, our company provides project management consultancy. Furthermore, we don't just offer management consultancy anymore, we also collaborate with landowners to develop their land. This way, both parties benefit. The landowner has the land, and we have the skills, contacts, and resources to turn the land into valuable real estate. Alright, this is a summary of what I gathered from Sunrise and Ma Singh PhD. In real estate, it all begins with understanding customers' needs. Whether it's buying residential, commercial, or office properties, we need to adapt to the different property demands in the area. From low-rise houses to high-rise condos, we must cater to the market's needs. This requires market research to understand what potential buyers are looking for. For instance, some buyers might want affordable housing, while others are willing to pay more for higher quality or larger units in prime locations. The project starts with affordability. If the buyer can afford a higher price, then we can begin the higher price project. We then move into the design and planning phases before delving into the details of development. The details involve understanding the area's potential, like how many units can fit in a given space. We might start with smaller units per floor for efficiency, but we'll balance that with the overall design. Larger buildings can have more units, but we also need to consider factors like lift lobbies, corridors, and common spaces. If I've explained this too concisely, don't worry. The slides have more information, and you can always reach out for further clarification. I'm here to help, and we can discuss any projects you're interested in. From start to finish, we assist with everything, introducing the land to developers, evaluating its potential, determining the right type of development, and establishing a reasonable land value. After that, if the landowner agrees, we move into design, architecture, and services, getting the necessary approvals, and then managing the project, even after completion. Developing a real estate project requires a dedicated team, especially since it involves and deals with various departments and regulations. The development department for developers is crucial to ensure that the project runs smoothly across its complex phases. The ultimate goal is to deliver a successful project that meets market demands while offering a valuable and efficient living or working space, and then need to submit to Building Plan Department. Now, there is new requirements is to submit CFUs, Schedule Formula Unit SIRE Certificate of Share Unit Formula, plans to the government for approval. In this project, we need to indicate how much build-up area is involved, the share factor for each unit, and how the project total build-up area is divided among the individual units. This division helps determine what percentage of maintenance costs each unit needs to bear. Strata Title Act applies to each high-rise development project. But land development doesn't need to apply CFUs. In any high-end development, there are maintenance costs for various components like lift, landscaping, corridors, painting, etc. These costs are distributed based on share factors based on the number of units. Both larger and smaller units contribute differently. A larger project with 200 units has different financial responsibilities compared to smaller ones. Each unit owner needs to contribute a share of these costs including the sinking fund. These can be managed by a management system or an IT system. The procurement department is responsible during the construction phase. If developer is using contractors, they need to call for tenders. Additionally, there are many other things like mechanical and electrical systems, Monday, or high-cost components. We need to call for nominated subcontractor or nominated suppliers. This is done through a selection process by procurement department. Throughout the entire process of a project, it starts with a business plan. We identify potential projects within this plan. For example, if some developer like Mossing wants to do more, they might choose to focus on one area for multiple phase projects or spread across several locations for higher volume. We can't expect to sell 5,000 units in one area at once because that area have limitations based on the population. So, we identify the town or city's demand and then look for lands to acquire. This needs to be supported by an economic plan. The company's business plan outlines how much it aims to achieve in terms of revenue, like starting with 1 billion this year and perhaps aiming for 1.5 or 2.5 billion next year. We work backward from the revenue goal, and that dictates how many land we need to acquire. The land acquisition can involve purchasing or joint venture JV by negotiating with landowners for cost-effective deals. Data collection is essential within this business plan. We need to analyze the current investment climate and market conditions. If the market is positive, we would want to acquire more land due to the high demand for properties. However, in a slower economy, the investment climate limits the number of lands we can buy. When we're planning a project, we calculate everything from how much land we have to the growth profit of the project. For instance, let's consider planning 200 units, each with 1,000 square feet, and selling at a certain price per square foot. This could be one version of the feasibility study. Another version might involve adjusting the number of units or the size of each unit. It's important to compare different scenarios and options. For instance, if we start with 200 units at 1,000 square feet each, selling at 500 ringgit per square foot, we can calculate our potential profits. Then, we might explore another options like having 200 units at 1,200 square feet each, selling at a lower price. Or you could consider starting with 300 units at 800 square feet each, selling at a different price. Ultimately, the higher the price, the higher the profitability. However, we also need to balance this with the property's location and market demand. A higher price might lead to slower sales if the location isn't ideal or if the market isn't responsive. The bottom line isn't just about how much profit we earn, it's also about assessing the associated risks. If we set a high selling price and the market conditions or location aren't favorable, the risk of slow sales or not selling at all increases. This isn't just about the bottom line but also about understanding if our project can withstand the challenges. If selling at an affordable price seems more feasible, then that's the approach to consider. It's a complex process that requires a thorough understanding of the market, demand, costs, and potential returns. If the project location population is crowded, no matter whether you build high-end or low-end price project, does not affect how much, does not determine how much, right? When we set selling prices high, the additional cost accounts for about 30% to 40% higher cost of the entire project. The other 60% of the construction cost we can't see. These are all structures, for example the size of the beam, and the size of the M&E service. For structure, we can't set too much lower construction cost because we're building cheaper property, the building will be more easy to collapse, that's not possible. So, engineer doesn't allow us to cut corners, and we also wouldn't want to compromise on the safety to allow a bit more prone to collapsing. We might think about reducing some costs in areas that are less critical, but we can't alter the structure cost. Another factor is the M&E cost, which covers things like lights, switches, and other fixtures that contribute around 20% of the overall construction cost. Within this 20% of overall construction cost, we have many items like wires within lights, ducting behind air conditioners, the air conditioning machine and system itself, and other unseen components like the plant in the Monday, mechanical and electrical, room. So, what we see in the Monday cost only constitutes around 5% to 10% of the total, while the rest is hidden, and this could impact around 6 to 7% of the cost. So, usually, it's more profitable to sell at a higher price. However, the challenge is that we might not be able to sell at that price, which is a major consideration. When we set selling prices high, the additional cost accounts for about 30% to 40% higher cost of the entire project. The other 60% of the construction cost we can't see. These are all structures, for example the size of the beam, and the size of the M&E service. For structure, we can't set too much lower construction cost because we're building cheaper property, the building will be more easy to collapse, that's not possible. So, engineer doesn't allow us to cut corners, and we also wouldn't want to compromise on the safety to allow a bit more prone to collapsing. We might think about reducing some costs in areas that are less critical, but we can't alter the structure cost. Another factor is the M&E cost, which covers things like lights, switches, and other fixtures that contribute around 20% of the overall construction cost. Within this 20% of overall construction cost, we have many items like wires within lights, ducting behind air conditioners, the air conditioning machine and system itself, and other unseen components like the plant in the Monday, mechanical and electrical, room. So, what we see in the Monday cost only constitutes around 5% to 10% of the total, while the rest is hidden, and this could impact around 6 to 7% of the cost. So, usually, it's more profitable to sell at a higher price. However, the challenge is that we might not be able to sell at that price, which is a major consideration. This is a key consideration during the design process. When we economically evaluate a facility and decide what project to undertake, it can yield different returns based on various factors. Once you decide, for example, to plan 200 units, each with 1,000 square feet, selling at 500 ringgit per square foot, we can move forward with the design phase. From the starting point of 200 units, 1,000 square feet each, we then search for an appropriate consultant. For instance, some consultants specialize in landed and low-rise and low-end projects, while others have experience with higher-rise and high-end ones. We select the one with relevant experience and a reasonable suitable fee. The one that's most expensive need to avoid. Then, after appointing the irrelevant consultant, we proceed to create a schematic concept, which outlines the project's basic design. For instance, if we're planning 200 units, they could be organized into a single block of 200 units or 2 blocks of 100 units. If our land is spacious enough, we could opt for 2 blocks, with shared facilities placed in between. This is something we advocate. If we have less space, we can still place common facilities on the podium rooftop or beneath a tower. This placement of common facilities on the rooftop can be a good selling point, even a trend. Imagine saying, wow, every morning having it beach right inside the property. It's like every morning, you wake up and experience the beach and the sky, watching the sunrise. My previous boss incorporated something similar, which also became a selling point. Different projects have different attributes, and they might involve various parties. The primary role is the main decision maker, supported by secondary consultants who assist the primary role in making decisions. It's easy to think that if something looks beautiful, people will definitely buy it. But if we make it too expensive and end up losing money, that's not useful either. So, our selling price must balance with quality. Higher is better, but not so high until project lose money. We need a 20% profit margin to achieve that balance. Right? In terms of project stages, when in stage 2, it's necessary to follow the HDA stage building process. This involves complying with legal regulations and obtaining the necessary approvals. Once all 8 approvals are secured and construction of pile cap is completed, you can proceed to stage 2A. Each stage corresponds to a certain percentage of completion, like structure work is 15% for stage 2B, and so on. Once everything is clear and the cost budget is in place, the tender process can begin. After receiving the tender, you can compare offers, conduct interviews, and negotiate before awarding the contract to the selected contractor. During the construction phase, inspections are critical to ensure that the construction aligns with the design plans. Along with following the specifications, ensuring high-quality workmanship is essential. 26 sales strategies involve various approaches, such as creating events to attract potential buyers to the sales gallery. These events engage people through activities and showcase the showroom. The involvement of agents and online promotion through platforms like Facebook can also help spread awareness about the project. In some cases, hosting events like VIP ceremonies with celebrities can further enhance the project's appeal. In essence, these strategies aim to engage potential buyers and highlight the project's value. It's possible to give potential buyer or visitor some hand gift, and when is acceptable. They can help us promote our property and make it very sellable. This is because buyers hope for an opportunity to interact with others who live in the same condominium or project. Apart from financing when purchase the land, for instance, if the land costs $10 million, the bank finances around 50 to 60%. This covers expenses during the real estate process, including consultant fees, payments to contractors, subcontractors, and suppliers of materials. Parking can be a challenge. Car parks often have multiple levels, 5, 6, 7, etc., and they need to be completed before claiming starts. Projects parking has specific complexities due to bank regulations. When it comes to financing, there are various methods. Term loan, project financing like bridging loan, syndicate financing, and options like e-stock, share, and bond or debenture have emerged. Each has its own benefits and requirements. Syndicate financing involves multiple banks sharing the risk for larger projects that a single bank can't fully support. For public-listed company, e-stock, share, and bond or debenture options can be explored. Next, there's the matter of external authorities, including telecom, MCMC, DNB, Air Selangor, and so on. Within 18 months or any other during preset, developer have a responsibility to handle any defects that arise. If the developer fails to address these defects, the buyer can request rectification from other sources, and if defects are confirmed, the funds held by stakeholders like the bank or lawyer will need to be returned. The project planning and evaluation stage is crucial. During this phase, a thorough assessment of the land's potential and feasibility study takes place. Different designs, target markets, and marketing strategies are considered to determine the project's direction. After confirming the project, schematic design, design improvement, and submission to authorities follow. Sales and marketing, construction and documentation management, can all occur simultaneously or in various combinations, depending on the situation. These stages involve several processes, including order processing, billing, planning, submission to authorities, licensing, and advertisement permits. This process ensures that project remains profitable and meets the required standards. The size and complexity of the project influence various factors, such as financing, working capital, and partner involvement. If the project is significantly larger, the corresponding factors need to be scaled up. Financing sources include project financing institutions, banks, and partners. As the economy grows and people's incomes increase, they're more capable of investing in larger properties. The idea is to tailor the property's size and price to the economic growth and increased income levels of potential buyers. In essence, the whole process involves thorough planning, careful evaluation, and strategic implementation to create a successful and profitable real estate project. The individual buyer, if we provide them with high quality, their income need to be higher. So, I need funding higher than $500 per square feet to capitalize on this kind of data. However, you see, is this data specific to the region? How is the income in that area? Who lives there now, and so on. And then, in which area and to what level are the standards set? We need to go to data collection to find out, right? It's not just about finding where people currently live in 1,000 square foot houses for $500 per square feet, but also about finding out where others are building additional houses within the 1,100 square foot range, right? Oh, if someone else has 3 projects building 1,100 square foot houses, and we do the same, we'll be competing with them. So, we should build 1,200 or 1,000 square foot houses, right? This way, we won't be competing directly. It's about having different types and sizes of offerings. So, we need to connect this data, then do this feasibility study. As for the feasibility report we discussed earlier, we need to check it. If we're doing a project with 1,100 square foot units, how much of that design can we achieve? What selling price can we allocate, and then what's our cost? Maybe as we discussed earlier, we can do 1,100 square foot units for $500, or alternatively, we could revert to 1,000 square foot units, but provide a high quality, higher spec design and sell them for $550. We can also consider the concept of higher quality and better design and compare different options to make a decision. This decision is not just about what's better, but also considering the policy study to determine which design option needs to be passed as the project starts. For instance, if it's about the important 1,100 square foot units, how many rooms are in there, how large are they, how large are each of the rooms, how many bathrooms, and so on. It's a very detailed design. After we've created the designs, before submitting to the authority, it's best to have them reviewed by the marketing director and marketing department. Otherwise, design mistakes might occur, affecting marketing and potential buyers. Therefore, marketing should oversee these placements and design issues, such as the placement of restroom doors and main doors. There are cultural sensitivities, such as among Malaysians and other ordinary people, as well as non-professionals. So, it's important to handle these aspects well, as it's a matter of respect for cultures and avoiding misunderstandings. The second stage is the design and design development. So, we need to optimize the design process, including architecture and conceptual plans. At this point, after discussing designs for 1,100 units, it's time to develop into more detailed design. We might need to have 10 units per floor and 4 or 5 units per floor or even 2 blocks. This conceptualization needs to take shape during this stage. Why? I understand that costs are based on transaction costs, so the more we design, the more wastage there might be, leading to higher costs and expenses, right? Comparing to a high profit margin with minimum common area space, big common area space to increase sellability and marketability is even more substantial. However, this leads to a lot of waste and high deductions, resulting in high costs. Therefore, we must tally it up, because when we do this calculation, firstly, our yearly costs decrease, and secondly, we can sell at a lower price. Otherwise, we'll always be able to sell at a lower price. Suppose we're not selling it cheap enough, or at least on par with the other developers' selling price. How do we sell then? We sell at a slightly lower price, and our concept becomes more appealing, right? This way, we'll find it easier to sell. Moreover, these designs need to be optimized to the optimum, the best. If we can optimize them ourselves, and then we shrink common area space, the calculations must also make sense. We can't calculate them to a point where the quality drops by 30%. Both parties need to make movement. Can take a look at that TV advertisement, where 2 people are oversize, and their bellies are almost touching their waists. We need to identify what's most efficient and avoid situations where things are difficult to use or not usable at all. That's when we present the plans to the authority and get their approval. As discussed earlier, authority approval involves all aspects, where we present the plans straightforwardly, and covert aspects where we approach them to test the waters. This is how we can secure the best approval. The first step involves building more and incorporating unique higher provisions, as we've seen. The second aspect is that they might impose certain requirements on us, which might be fewer. For instance, if they believe that our project will cause traffic congestion, they might impose restrictions. Or in terms of timelines, if they haven't approved your project, they might impose strict timelines, which would increase our costs. This covers payment for goods, insurance, and other purchases. Some might not require a license, or an additional permit, which is essential for us to begin sales. Project financing involves understanding how much money our project requires and how much working capital is needed for success. Generally, it's calculated around 30% of the gross development cost, which should be sufficient. This 30% is also based on our sales pace. If our sales are not too slow and we've sold 50% in 3 months, this method should suffice. This is because for stage building, under the HDA account, we can only claim after we've completed the work, unlike in commercial property. For instance, if we have 50,000 pieces of bricks per unit, we need to complete the first few bricks or a couple of layers before we can determine the unit or floor. The 30% of the gross development cost we mentioned earlier helps we calculate how much cash needs to be disbursed and received, monthly or quarterly. This is a precise measure for both parties. The 30% of the gross development cost is only a general outline and not accurate. The design idea for my ex-company Masing Berhad must appealed to wife, especially since the kitchen was beautifully designed and practical. This might be why wife developed an interest in the property and bought it. Selling property with only paper is very challenging because people can't see or feel it, and it's not attractive. However, when we sell a unique property, we not only provide a brochure but also show unit or mock unit. We don't even need to explain much. As soon as they see it, for instance, in a completed unit, their willingness to buy becomes higher. Another consideration is the competition from many other developers. So, we employ a method to equip ourselves against the competition from other developers. We focus on observing other developers in the vicinity to gauge when they'll obtain approvals and when they plan to launch. We aim to launch earlier, perhaps 1 or 2 months before them, as we analyze Phase 1 and Phase 2, which are both types of soil: marine clay, a very weak and unreliable soil type. To counter this, we utilize a double method, raft foundation along with street footing, to adjust this peak and make it a foundation. This way, when it settles, it all sinks together, avoiding variations in the extent of sinking. However, we encountered an issue with the road. It was too old and couldn't handle the load. So, we had to build a 4-lane road and extend it to our side. But starting with 4 lanes would have been costly. So, our solution was to start with 2 lanes when the foot traffic was low due to having only a few faces. After completing 5 phases of projects, we added the other 2 lanes, creating a 4-lane road. This helped reduce the initial high costs and shifted some costs to a later stage, when we'd turn back after facing Phase 1 and Phase 2 and work on the other 2 lanes. At that time, our target was quite ambitious. We aimed to complete this 314-acre project within 10 years, which would lead to higher yearly GDV, project sales, and complete turnover, resulting in a higher grooming speed. If we have the same design everywhere, it becomes difficult to sell. We need to differentiate ourselves from Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3 and avoid competing with our own projects. The solution is to have unique designs for each phase, creating different products. During launching, we gather property buyers with different design preferences and requirements, from cluster houses to semi-D, zero lots, and bungalows. This eliminates internal competition. The first case study for my another ex-company Sunrise Berhad is Montghiari 11. Covering 5.3 acres with a total of 339 units and a GDV of 672 million. The design concept for this was contemporary design, with only 2 units per floor. We began this project in 2006, and besides selling the property, having eco-friendly green certifications and qualifications helped sell the project. It was ecologically designed, and we focused on building various communities within it. MK11 is located next to MK10. The concept and model were as follows, and this was taken during the construction of the car park. The designer's photo, the blue sky, and the rising sun can be seen, and we incorporated glass panels below the swimming pool so can see gym. So, when people are working out in the gym, they can see people swimming above. This adds an extra selling point. Our challenge was that in March 2007, when we launched, 75% of units were already sold, but we were still pending D.O. Development order. A license is only required for housing development because it falls under the Housing Development Act. For instance, when you submit your application, you need to specify the type of residential project you are working on, similar to the administrative license. In the first phase, we are only developing 5% of that area. What are we doing with this 5%? We are creating a line of property, starting from semi-detached, bungalow, cluster house, for the first phase, and other developer licenses. No, developer licenses remain the same. Unless you use a different subsidiary for Phase 2, if you use the same subsidiary for all of Phase 2, the developer license can be used for Phase 2. The components for Phase 2 are not known when Phase 1 is being designed, so your budget management knowledge is essential. Another important aspect is that you need to involve other architects, Kanda engineers, Manda engineers, and quality assurance professionals based on their experience and professional qualifications. They help make decisions, and it's not just about knowledge but also an art. You need them to work together to enhance the vitality of our project. Once the project is completed and handed over within a year, you need to form a Human Vitality Development Committee. There is a tradition that at least 5 to 12 property buyers must become members and participate in decision-making, such as how the building will be managed. Some oversee direct management, some oversee new homes, and others oversee new landscaping. They all collaborate to decide how the building will be managed. Once this phase is completed, after a year or when the starter has come out, you call for another meeting to establish a management corporation, Mansion Corporation. This is when your subsidiary agreement and transfer agreement, SATA, has been completed, and 25% of the total development units have changed their ownership from developer to buyer names. At this point, you can proceed. Originally, the land had a name, and some buyers have put their names on it, while some units have not been purchased yet for various reasons. In August, when the titles are changed to the buyer's names, representing 25% of the units, both the Max Company and Liverpool are handed over to the building owner, GMB. During the previous phase, Liverpool needed to set up a representative to discuss with the Max Company, but now, that is no longer necessary, as everything is handed over to them, and we can exit permanently. Okay, PMC can work in parallel with other consultants in this section, admission to the landowner, their insertion, and work as a same-level team. In another section, a landowner or developer can apply for a PMC, and the PMC will handle all the other consultants. So, the first group has a single point of responsibility, a single point of reference. It is mainly for PNC, portrait management, and developing other consultants is more convenient because everything is in the portal, and the PNC acts as a representative. I have a few case studies. The first one is Alpha Padana. In Phase Study 1, it covers 315 acres with a total value of over 2,500 properties. The GDP is 1.3 million. During the launch, the concept was to focus on landed properties, many of which were link houses. When launched, you will directly compete with them. They will either buy from you or you from them, and competition can be risky. If your design is different, larger, or unique, your sales rate will be higher because you have something others don't. In this case, we are working on projects such as Gluston House, Med, Jurong Bangkok, and so on. In these projects, we emphasize landscaping and incorporate many water features. We use fast construction methods because we promise to deliver quickly, allowing buyers to move into their new homes before getting married, having children, or celebrating significant life events. This fast delivery is a selling point for us, as some developers might say their projects will take 5 years, which is too long for many buyers. If we can promise 3 years, it's more attractive. Past consumption is also a method to make buyers interested. Otherwise, if a developer says their project will take 5 years, many people won't even consider it. Some developers might even take 4 or 5 years to complete the paperwork. Our projects have higher appreciation rates, surpassing the typical 30-story buildings, with some reaching 50 or 60 stories. I can show you the latest project with a 68% completion rate. In this context, we use fast connections to speed up the project. Our design philosophy is unique. Each face design is different, featuring ladders instead of linear layouts. We have clusters like bundle, CVD, and more. We create various layouts, road networks, and designs to cater to different preferences and feng shui principles. Water features and ponds are essential elements, attracting people and enhancing market appeal. One of our first challenges is the mobility of the area. It's closer to adjustments but farther from the chaos treatment. We have to compete with major surgical projects, so we face distance and competition. Our approach is to provide materials, books, conda, and cost-effective solutions, offering 10% to 20% lower prices compared to Sedya RMB. This is our unique selling point. Back in 2003, when competing with Sedya RMB for SB Sedya, it was challenging, but we could compete by offering a lower price. The aesthetic appeal is subjective, but the price difference is clear-cut. For the court, our project is excellent, with a large workforce, good feng shui according to Joy Yap, and a property growth corridor in Haicheng City. We celebrate various festivals like New Year, Hari Raya, Chinese New Year, Diwali, and Valentine's Day with AQT events. This brings a unique atmosphere to the project. We also have a 5.21-acre area for a show village, featuring 14 different designs with extensive interior design and name scripting. Many developers are now creating show units with beautiful designs. Buyers of existing properties often visit these show units with their spouses to make informed decisions. Look, at that time, we didn't have the development order, DO, so how did we sell and collect payment? The DO was an ADU, amended development order, and we needed to make some changes to the details. So, we attended the ADU process and paid the lawyers. The check was left for 3 months. During these 3 months, we weren't sure if our ADU would be approved. So, we had to decide whether to refund the check to the buyer, which would expire in 3 months, or bank in, capture the sales and proceed. This process had a challenge because we hadn't applied for it, and we were allowed a maximum of 36 months. After completing our project and going beyond 36 months, people began applying for the Handing Over Date Allowance, HDA. After 8 months and 50 months, we had to apply for this HDA. So, we planned the money for it. Our project had 44 stories, and it was difficult to complete it within 36 months and hand over to buyers without incurring a penalty, 10% per year penalty. We used the fast-track construction method, overlap foundation work, program work to save 6 months. We started infrastructure work and authority inspection 1 month earlier each, saving a total of 8 months. So, in these 43 months, we saved 8 months, completing the project within 36 months without delivering to the buyers. This project, the CBP, contiguous board piling, was used because the land area is small and some ground was high, and to achieve this design, we had to use the CBP, contiguous board piling. Due to this project's success, many others, including offices, service apartments, shop lots, and super complexes, are moving towards an all-in-one mixed development. This enhances convenience. Another project is called Utamas Publica. These are shop lots, low-rise offices, and service apartments, each with different towers, Grade A offices, and various other units. The idea was to create a shopping complex similar to the ones outside. But when selling, we needed to make it more shopping-like to attract buyers. However, it's risky. Selling within a shopping mall is easy and fast, but if it doesn't work, you can lose a lot. Look, at that time, we didn't have the development order, DO, so how did we sell and collect payment? The DO was an ADO, amended development order, and we needed to make some changes to the details. So, we attended the ADO process and paid the lawyers. The check was left for 3 months. During these 3 months, we weren't sure if our ADO would be approved. So, we had to decide whether to refund the check to the buyer, which would expire in 3 months, or bank in, capture the sales and proceed. This process had a challenge because we hadn't applied for it, and we were allowed a maximum of 36 months. After completing our project and going beyond 36 months, people began applying for the Handing Over Date Allowance, HDA. After 8 months and 50 months, we had to apply for this HDA. So, we planned the money for it. Our project had 44 stories, and it was difficult to complete it within 36 months and hand over to buyers without incurring a penalty, 10% per year penalty. We used the fast-track construction method, overlap foundation work, program work to save 6 months. We started infrastructure work and authority inspection 1 month earlier each, saving a total of 8 months. So, in these 43 months, we saved 8 months, completing the project within 36 months without delivering to the buyers. This project, the CBP, contiguous board piling, was used because the land area is small and some ground was high, and to achieve this design, we had to use the CBP, contiguous board piling. Due to this project's success, many others, including offices, service apartments, shop lots, and super complexes, are moving towards an all-in-one mixed development. This enhances convenience. Another project is called Utamas Publica. These are shop lots, low-rise offices, and service apartments, each with different towers, Grade A offices, and various other units. The idea was to create a shopping complex similar to the ones outside. But when selling, we needed to make it more shopping-like to attract buyers. However, it's risky. Selling within a shopping mall is easy and fast, but if it doesn't work, you can lose a lot. Chapter No. 1 is about understanding high GDP and risk proofing. This case involves a 3,000 square feet area with a GDP of 1.1 billion. To increase profit, we can go higher, but that also means we need to sell slowly. We also have different rates of competition. In the end, we divided it into 5 phases for different designs and strategies. This included 5 building plans, 5 launchings, and 5 handing over dates. We tried to avoid high costs in various ways, such as the basement car park and diaphragm wall. Another project is called KL68 was a transforming project with 4.2 acres land, involving 1,620 service apartments and 24 retail units, with a GDP of 1.1 billion. The concept was mixed development of service apartments and commercial retail lots, based on modern contemporary design. The project involved different tower heights and various units to cater to different market segments. What cost are you talking about is about avoiding high land costs and construction costs. So, our cost is higher than mine, even though the area is smaller. It's probably a 100,000 square foot house with a land area of about 10,000 to 20,000 square feet. His cost is calculated at around 800 to 900 per square foot. What is the GDC, gross development cost? Yes, it includes both land, construction and other development cost. All costs divided by land area. Another point is that land price at DRX area should be slightly higher. And if land area is small, construction costs will be slightly higher. The reason is that for a given land size, you still need the same set of elevators. But with more units, you can have more car parks and more units. So, for land, over the construction cost, the smaller the land, the more expensive it is. There are also setback requirements. What do we use to calculate the management fee? We are more flexible, we can use the GDC or construction cost. It also depends on the project size and capacity. Why project size? For instance, for a project of 100 million, 1% is only 1 million. If the project is 10 million, 1% is 100,000. But even 100,000 is hard to cover because it will take about 4 to 5 years. So, it depends on the project size or set client value. Our management fee and running costs are lower compared to others, so it varies depending on the project size. Some might not need total management coverage, just certain areas. I think we can calculate it per month, using GDC or even construction costs. Actually, we'd prefer to talk to the developer. The most accurate method is using GDV. Different methods and approaches are available. Project with a higher GDV can result in a lower percentage fee. If we use construction costs, the percentage might be around 1.5%. Is 10% to 20% of GDP for JV projects? Is 10% for affordable housing? That's for selling very cheap houses, right? As I mentioned earlier, when you're selling very cheap houses, we can't cut corners on the structure. It might be a bit less expensive, but it can't be too cheap, right? For Monday, mechanical and electrical systems, we can't make it too thin just because we're selling cheap. The wiring external coat cannot be thinner, but it's prone to burning, catching fire easily. It can't be done that way. Aircon, air conditioning, is also prone to jamming.